Saturday, 3 p.m., early spring. Nelson Saar is called out for the second time now to search for a young, despondent female who's been missing for 6 days. The woman's car was found abandoned in a parking lot near a popular hiking area. Today's search is based on some new information.
Well, we were told by Nelson City Police that a psychic had communicated with the subject and that her body would be found in this area.
That psychic is local resident Norm Pratt, who felt compelled to get involved after following the case in the media and then hearing from the subject.
I started feeling like this girl was dead, that she was in spirit, and pretty soon she was coming to me and actually communicating with me and asking me to find her.
Norm places a call to the detective in charge of the investigation.
After 6 days into the investigation, they'd basically exhausted all the usual avenues. They'd used search and rescue teams to go look where this girl's car was found. They'd had a helicopter with an infrared, actually, to try to pick up body heat. They took in a dog handler from the RCMP with a search dog. So he was really kind of open to anything. And the moment that I called him, he had just made the decision to try to find a psychic. When he went to pick up the phone, I was on the other end of the line.
I have some information that might be of service.
The day before I phoned the police, I had a vision of a helicopter flying over this mountainside. And that's what we did. We went up, and sure enough, I did recognize the area from the air and saw where I felt this girl was. We threw some flagging tape out into the trees around it so that the detective and I would be able to find it when we did a ground search. So we basically bushwhacked up through really dense old growth forest, up a steep mountainside, what started out as knee-deep snow and became thigh-deep snow pretty quickly. And when we did turn around and come back, I felt her telling me that I'd walked right past her. And we tried to retrace our steps, but it was really hard to find even our tracks in the snow because there were a lot of elk and deer tracks, and it was kind of broken up where we were.
Norm suggests they bring GroundSAR back in to do a detailed grid search. For Nelson Search and Rescue, it was the first time the subject's point last seen had been determined by a psychic's vision.
Hey, it was different, but if there was a chance it would work, we were willing to give it a try.
The coordinator of Search and Rescue wasn't incredibly pleased when he found out that the search area had been determined by a psychic.
The oddest part, really, was he wanted us to search higher and higher in deeper snow. Typically, subjects take the path of least resistance. They go downhill, look for shelter.
They went in and they did a really good grid search of the area, and they went right up basically into the area that I designated.
And found nothing. Norm begins to doubt himself.
When that search was finished and they hadn't found anything, I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong, and could be wrong. And that's not what this girl was telling me in spirit or what I felt, but it's easy to question yourself, especially when there's no results to show for what you're doing.
Nonetheless, Norm continues to search on occasion, sometimes alone, sometimes with the Nelson police detective, who still believes in Norm's intuition.
Other people had sort of given up on the investigation, and he and I were basically keeping it alive and wanted to do everything we could to find her.
Norm keeps hearing from the girl, feeling her energy.
The feeling of energy building up is like when you have somebody pestering you to some degree, where if you're not paying attention, they're going to keep at you, and they're going to keep trying to get your attention. And it was like, I need to do something, or I'm not going to be able to sleep.
It's now late fall. Norm has looked for the missing woman often, and today prepares to go out for his last search of the year.
I could feel energy sort of coming up again, that it just felt like before it snows again, before winter, I need to go in there and take a look for this girl. We don't want to leave her up there for a whole winter.
Norm puts something special in his pack.
Just prior to that, the detective had given me a box of this girl's belongings so that I could sort of handle them and get a sense of her, and that didn't really work for me, but I decided to throw a shoe of hers in the backpack. It was interesting that he was willing to give me the box because he said normally we don't release any sort of evidence to the public or anybody. But at that point, he and I had probably gone on about 5 or 6 different searches together, and you definitely form a bond.
Norm heads out on the search with a friend. Unlike search and rescue teams, however, he quite willingly allows himself to get lost in the woods.
In getting lost, I'm not using my mind anymore. It's like I've sort of given up. I'm sort of just surrendering it over to, the intuitive process and allowing myself to just be guided.
Then, it happens.
Lo and behold, as we were hiking through the woods, I found a shoe. And I pulled the shoe out of my backpack and looked at this shoe on the ground, and they were the same size. It was a girl's shoe, and I knew immediately it was hers because the energy got so intense at me finding that shoe that I started to vibrate and then started to cry. It was just so intense to find, and we'd been waiting for that for a long time.
It seems the girl had trudged through the ever-deepening snow up into the forest, then taken off all of her clothing at the base of the tree.
One of the things that she told me was that when she did that, she had hung her blue coat over a branch to flag my attention. When we found her stuff, that coat had fallen onto the ground, but it had a branch right through it. You could see on the tree where the branch had broken off over time, probably got wet from rain or something. Underneath the coat were her clothes all neatly folded.
The police document the evidence. A week later, Norm returns with the detective to search again. This time, they find a bone.
Intuitively, I knew immediately it was a femur because my leg started to vibrate. So I told the detective, this is her. This is her bone.
DNA analysis eventually confirms this. The very next day, snow falls heavy and winter begins. The following spring, Norm and the detective are out searching again. This time, things move very quickly.
We were in the one area kind of searching through some pretty heavy undergrowth, and I saw a stick on the ground, and the way it was shaped, I thought it was a rib. And I leaned down to get it and realized, no, it's just a stick. But right away, the detective looked about 5 feet away from where I was and pointed and said, that's her.
The girl has been found. It's not a happy ending, but like all SAR recoveries, it brings some closure to the family and to those involved in the search. Norm has given kindly of his time and is here to help.
I've been really pleased to be able to volunteer and give my time to assist with different missing person cases, but I've worked on cases where I wasn't able to get anything and we weren't able to find the person, and they still haven't been found. But anytime I ever work with somebody that has what I call passed into spirit, they never go away. This girl comes to me all the time, comes to me today, comes to me right now while we're speaking.